There we go. Hello, hello. John S. Rhodes here of the Rhodes Brothers. This is Greater Wealth Through Mastery. And the topic of today's short talk is the 80-20 focus rule. What this all comes down to is how much control do you have over the situation, over the decision? How much control do you have in this aspect of your life? How much control do you have right here, right now? And as a result of that, we're going to be able to look at how much effort you should be putting in and how much you should pay attention to what is going on in that situation. So, we're going to talk about three different types of control: zero control, where things are happening and there's not anything that you can do about it. There's no way for you to have control over the outside world, over the situation. Now, obviously, you can control yourself to a degree, maybe to a lesser degree, maybe to, an ironclad, super tight fisted, ultra control. Awesome. So, again, zero control of the outside world and varying levels of internal control. Zero control. The second is low control. So you have some control, you're able to have some input, give you some output. There is some if that you're able to do something and then things will happen. If this, then that. Maybe it's mechanical, maybe it's trivial. Maybe you have very limited control, but it's low control. And then there is high control. Again, this is of the outside world. This is of things that are out there. Maybe you can make decisions and people have to listen to you. Maybe it's something in the outside world where you're interacting with someone or something and you are able to directly touch and directly influence exactly what is going on. So zero control, low control, high control. Okay, so if you have zero control, then if the impact of the activity is very high, right? So you have no control, but the impact is very high, then your attention, your focus should be low. So zero control, high impact, low attention. So not zero attention, but low attention. And that's because the impact is very high. It'll impact your friends, your family, you, your business, your money, your health, relationships. Okay. So again, no control, very high impact, therefore low attention. If the impact is low, so zero control, low impact, then give it no attention. That's zero attention, zero focus. So let's look at two examples. Again, zero control, you can't do a thing, there's nothing you can do, zero control. And a high impact situation might be local politics. So you can't really control, maybe you can slightly influence, maybe you can go out there and help a candidate, maybe you can pound signs into lawns, maybe you can go to some meetings, but your ability to control that politician or what's going to happen in the election, anything like that, the local politics, there's a little bit going on, there's a little bit of control, or a little bit of influence, but it's so trivial that it's basically zero control. But the impact is very, very high. The impact could be insanely high. So therefore, you should give it low attention. Now, what about zero control and low impact? In that situation, we might be talking about national politics. You see the difference. With local politics, you can get closer to the candidates, you can show up for community meetings, you can do things in your community, perhaps you could donate some money, but your actual control is next to nothing. You have just no control over what other people are going to do in terms of their votes and what kind of impact you can have. It's just very, very low, but you should still pay attention and you might still want to try. So this is like a don't give up. You can try, but because you have such little control, that the control is zero, that it's not going to do much at all. But national politics, on the other hand, that's trivial. There's just almost nothing you can do. You're not going to change minds. You're not going to change the outcome of the election. And therefore, in terms of your focus, next to nothing. So national politics don't deserve your attention, or very, very little. Because not only can you not control what's going on, that if you get sucked into national politics, you get sucked into one party or the other, or an us versus them situation, it's like, and you're setting yourself up for hardship, especially if you're talking about self-actualization, if you're talking about personal development, if you're talking about relationships, if you're talking about wealth, if you're talking about the things that actually matter in your life. National politics is mostly going to drain your time. It's going to drain your attention. It's going to maybe drain your wallet. So you don't have any control. The control is so limited. It doesn't mean you completely give up. It just means you barely pay attention, because the impact that you can have is so minimal. When the control is so low and there's so little that you can do, look, it's better off for you to go local or even not pay much attention at all. But that's the first lesson right there, is that if you can't control something in the outside world, then it doesn't deserve your attention, or it deserves very little of your attention, and you just kind of keep tabs on it, as they say. All right, so that's the first chunk. The next chunk is if you have low control. So if you have low control, but still some, more than zero, like you can actually do a little bit of pushing and prodding, there might be a way for you to have or otherwise exert some control. If it's high impact, then you probably want to give it medium attention. Low control, but high impact, give it medium attention. Next, if it's low impact, then probably low attention. Okay, so again, you've got some control. It's not zero. You're not assuming zero or next to zero. You've got some control. And the impact is high. So some control, right? Some control and impact is high. Then it deserves like medium attention. If the control is low and the impact is low, it deserves like low attention. Barely any attention, but maybe some. So I'll give you two examples here. So high impact and low control. That would be something like the S&P 500, and in particular, let's say an S&P 500 index fund. So you can't really change the market. You're not going to be able to change the market. So if you buy into an S&P 500 index fund, when you buy into it, you have some control because you're allocating some of your resources. You're actually taking cash or money or dividends or whatever it is, and you're allocating that to an S&P 500 index fund. So the impact is high, but the control is low, so it deserves medium attention. And that's because it can impact your spending, it can impact your retirement, your nest egg. If you're withdrawing or drawing down on that investment, you've got that going on as well. But again, low, not zero, but low control, because you can invest or not invest. It's money, and you can put more and more money in over time, or you can drain it down over time. So you'd want to pay attention to it, but you have to know that you're not going to actually be able to impact the S&P 500 itself. Okay, so next example is low control again, but low impact. So the impact, especially to you, is very low. So you can't control it very much, and the impact is low. So again, kind of small, almost trivial. And an example of that might be a Coca-Cola bottling operation in Singapore. So you're barely going to be, you have almost no control. You might be able to influence in some way. You might know someone in Singapore. You might know a thing or two about bottling. You might be a Coca-Cola investor, or indirectly you own some Coca-Cola because you are buying into an S&P 500 fund and Coca-Cola is in that fund. But the control is very, very low, especially in terms of what you can do in terms of impact in that particular Coca-Cola bottling operation in Singapore. Very, very difficult for you to have any kind of impact, but you still might want to pay attention to it. It's low attention, but it's not zero. And that might be because, let's say you are a Coca-Cola investor and there's a major fire or there's a tsunami or a major strike. Something happens at that particular facility, and that may have an impact on the Coca-Cola stock price, which you might be invested in. So you're going to pay some attention, but it's not going to get much attention at all. Okay, so we've covered zero control and we've covered low control. All right, so this is where things are like, okay, what about high control? And again, this is for the outside world. So if you have high control and you can have a high impact, so control and your ability to impact is very high. That's the best of both worlds in terms of what deserves your attention. Therefore, if you have high control and it has high impact, especially on your life, and it's happening in the outside world, then you'll want to pay very, very close attention. Again, this is about your focus time. So think about that as the best example. High impact, high control, therefore high attention. Now, next might be low impact, therefore with high control and low impact, it's going to get medium attention. It doesn't deserve zero attention, it doesn't deserve low attention, but because the control is so high that you know that you can really change things regarding this low impact activity, whatever it happens to be. You can move mountains. You can make incredible things happen because you have high control in the outside world on that thing, but the impact is low. And then last but not least, certainly high control but zero impact. Again, guess what? That deserves some attention, but very, very low attention. And again, that's because the control is so high that you know if you just go bink and just barely nudge something, that because your control is so high that you could have a little bit of impact, maybe it's negligible, but others might perceive you as having an impact. Nevertheless, it's not going to get zero attention, but it's going to get very, very low attention. So again, the control is super high, but the impact is zero or practically zero. So it at best deserves low attention. So again, high control, high impact, low impact, and zero impact. And it goes from high to medium down to low. So let me give you 3 examples when it comes to high control situations and high impact. It might be your personal freelancing hourly rates, because you have control over your hourly rate and how that hourly rate relates to other freelancers in the market that you're in, whether you're a freelance designer or writer, or maybe you do design and development and code. Maybe you're an architect, maybe you're an engineer of some sort. It doesn't even matter. If you're a freelancer, then your hourly rates is something that you have. If you're truly an independent freelancer, you have tremendous control. Therefore, because of that control being so high and the impact being so high, because if you change your rate by $10 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, that's $400 in a week, if I've got my math right. I think I do. But just a small change can have a high impact, and it relates directly to your money, which you care about. Your control is very, 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 very high. So again, your freelancing hourly rates, especially with respect to the hourly rates that other people are charging. So you see the difference there between, national politics on the one hand, where the control is very low, but the impact that you can have is also very low. So low control, low impact. And it's like, well, if I can't control it much and I don't have much, I can't manipulate, I can't change or persuade very much at all. Why do and I have zero control. I mean, heck, let's just say zero. With national politics, you practically have zero control as opposed to your freelancing rates. So what requires your attention? The Pareto principle says, hey, let's focus on those things that are the highest impact, the biggest bang for the buck, right? So 20% of whatever it is that you're paying attention to provides 80% of the results. 20% of the effort and the time results in 80% of the benefit, the result, the outcome, the value. So that's the 80-20 Pareto principle in very roughly, in rough speak. So if you have very high control and very high impact, of course it makes sense to spend more time. And that's a great example on that one. So if you have high control and low impact, again, medium attention, and that might be something like phone upgrades or upgrading and pay attention to the apps that are on your phone. So you have a lot of control over what apps end up showing up on your phone, what apps you're going to add, if there are new ones you're going to add, researching new apps for your career, for your job, for your business, and also upgrading the phone itself. So it can be the phone, it could be the apps, it could be upgrading the phone itself, the physical form. Hey, my phone, I'm going to upgrade it. Or it might be the apps that you're adding or the apps that you're upgrading. But I mean, that whole phone ecosystem, you have very, very high control over. It's not infinite control because sometimes updates are passed down that you have to subscribe to and you have to update your phone. But you have a very high level of control, very, very high level of control. But the impact is kind of low. It's not life or death by any means, but it does deserve medium attention. And then very high control and zero impact might be something like picking out the color of a highlighter. So your control is exceptional. You have all kinds of control, whether it's going to be an orange highlighter, a yellow highlighter, a green highlighter. So your control over that is enormous, tremendous, insane, crazy, right? So it's like, wow, look at that. I really have so much choice, and I can control what color highlighter I'm going to use, and then how I'm going to use it, where I'm going to use it. So there's tons of control. But if you think about it, the impact or the outcome or the result of using that highlighter, like the color doesn't really matter. It matters that, yeah, I grabbed a highlighter, but you could have used a pen. It could be substituted. Whether it's yellow or orange, relatively trivial. So it doesn't matter a whole lot. Okay, so if we put all this together, what this tells us very, very clearly is that we ought to be spending time on those things that we have the most control over and have the highest impact. And this gives it gives you permission to not do things that are trivial, to not focus on things that are beyond your control, to not waste your life, not waste your time on those things that are beyond your control. The insidious trap is that when you are doing things that you have no control over, it will feel as though the activity is productive because you're on the hamster wheel, and a hamster is still burning calories, is still paying attention. They're still putting in the work and the energy, or they think they are, but they're going nowhere. They're burning up their attention and their time and getting no real benefit other than, I suppose, the hamster on the wheel is getting some health benefit. But they're going nowhere. They're having no impact. And that's what happens in our lives very often is we get stuck in our habits, bad habits, right? We get stuck in our ways of doing things, and we think we have control, but we don't. So it's not until we at least have low to moderate control that paying attention pays off. So if you're going to spend, if you're going to pay attention or use attention, it really ought to be on those things where there's an impact, a value, an outcome, something that you would like to take advantage of in a good way, something that you would like to do for yourself, for your own benefit, or to benefit other people. Obviously, if you're creating something, if you're typing, writing, designing, whatever happens, coding, drawing, building templates, whatever it might be, in that case, you have tremendous amounts of control and the impact could be exponential. In other words, you might do something like write a book. You have a lot of control over that. And when you create that book, you create value, you package it up, and you make it available not just to one person, but to tens, hundreds, thousands of people. So you have a one-to-many impact. So not only are you working on what you can actually work on and pay attention to and control, but the actual time that you're putting in terms of your control and your time, you know that you can have an impact and you can create and you can build. So again, that's why high control, high impact situations are the ones to go after. But it behooves all of us to remember that we are constantly thinking about and working on zero control and low control activities where we're putting in the time and energy, but our control is very, very low. The control is just not there. And also at the same time, the impact that we can have is also very, very, very low. So we should avoid those situations. Now, I provided you with some examples. Obviously, I'd love to hear your examples of zero control and low impact activities on the one end, and at the other end, the high control, high impact activities. And if we have these bookends of low and low, or zero and low, and then high and high, that tells us exactly the kind of activities to zero in on and to really focus on. And again, I call this the 80-20 focus rule, because you can combine a couple of concepts together and it lets you know that you're working on the best of the best. You're working on those things that are meaningful, that you have an impact on, that you have control over, and that's how you can decide what to work on. So does this fit? Does this resonate with your experience? And let me know in the comments below. Very, very important to share that. And obviously, please send this episode to someone who will get benefit from it and better understand what it is they're doing with their time and what they can do to improve themselves. Because it's word of mouth referrals just like yours that make the channel grow. Go ahead and subscribe at this point in time, and also be looking out for the next breakthrough. I promise you will have a profound insight in that next video. It's a true breakthrough. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in action, the 80-20 focus rule, when you check out that next video. Thank you, John S. Rhodes, signing off.